In a bustling town perched atop a rolling hill, a venerable hospital stood like a silent sentinel over the community. Its whitewashed walls and red-tiled roof had borne witness to countless stories of hope and despair, of beginnings and farewells. And today was no different. Inside, in a quiet room filled with the steady beeping of monitors and the hushed murmurs of dedicated staff, a frail man lay on a sickbed. His body, weakened by an unrelenting illness, trembled with each shallow breath. Doctors and nurses moved swiftly around him, their expressions a careful balance of urgency and quiet resignation. In the dim light, as his strength waned and his eyes fluttered shut, the man mustered one final moment of clarity. With a voice barely above a whisper, he uttered, "God, I love you." The words, unexpected and soft yet profound, cut through the clinical haze. A few nurses exchanged startled glances. One turned to another, murmuring, "How can he call out to God at this moment, knowing he's about to die?" Unbeknownst to them, the man heard her. With great effort, he spoke again, his voice slow but firm. "It is a blessing to be alive." A hush fell over the room. The nurses, the doctor, everyone paused. Many believe that God's only blessings are wealth and success. The man continued, his breaths growing labored. But that is not true. Simply being alive, that is a blessing. His chest rose and fell in uneven intervals, his strength slipping away. With one last effort, he forced out a final whisper. "You all won't understand. It is a blessing to be alive." And then, silence. The doctor, who had been quietly observing, scoffed under his breath. "Nonsense," he muttered, shaking his head. Yet as he approached the bedside to check the man's pulse, he realized it was over. The patient was gone, and on his face rested a faint, peaceful smile. With a sigh, the doctor turned to the nurse. "Cover him up," he instructed before stepping out of the room. As he walked down the hall, he muttered bitterly, "You thought God would save you." A few days later, the same doctor was driving to work, music blaring from his car speakers. He drummed his fingers against the steering wheel, nodding to the beat, lost in the rhythm of the song. Then, a cough. At first, he dismissed it, clearing his throat and continuing to drive. Then another and another. The coughs grew harsher, deeper, until suddenly he couldn't breathe. Panic surged through him as he gasped for air. His vision blurred, his hands fumbled to roll down the window, but his strength was failing. His world spun, and then impact. Everything went dark. When the doctor woke up, he found himself staring at a white ceiling. The sterile scent of antiseptics filled his nose. His body throbbed with pain, a deep, all-consuming ache. He tried to move. Sharp agony shot through his limbs. Memories came flooding back. The crash, the suffocating helplessness, and then the man's words. "It is a blessing to be alive." A shudder ran through him as realization dawned. As nurses and doctors rushed into his room, working to stabilize him, déjà vu washed over him. He had been on the other side of this moment before, watching, indifferent, as another man fought for life. Now he was the one clinging to it. Tears welled in his eyes. In that moment, with pain gripping his body, he whispered a prayer. "God, please, let me live." His lips trembled as he nodded slowly, accepting a truth he had once dismissed. Truly, you never understand how blessed you are until you're lying on a sickbed. He exhaled shakily, eyes filled with newfound humility. Blessings aren't just material things. We take so much for granted, our health, our breath, our ability to move, to live. So many people don't get that privilege. Yet here I am, and I never even said thank you. What blessings do you think people often neglect? Have you ever paused to be grateful just for being alive?